Committee will come to order. At this time, we will proceed to interviews for the Veterans Affairs Board. We're going to take these individually, and we'll begin our first interview with Scott Baker. So, Scott Baker, I think he might be in the hallway. Come on down.
All right, here we go.
No problem. So Scott, we'll give you a moment to introduce yourself, tell us about your background and why you would like to serve on the Veterans Affairs Board.
Good morning, everyone. Name's Scott Baker. I served 27 years plus in the Air Force, all active duty. It was, I started out as a 18-year-old kid, going to basic training, learning how to work on F-16s. In my enlisted time, like I said, it taught me a lot of great opportunities, a lot of great skills. Taught me how to lead. I did 15 years enlisted time. I decided it's time to do something a little bit different, so I crossed over and became an Air Force officer, commissioned officer. In that time frame, I did about 12 years as an officer, as an aircraft maintenance officer, so managing fleets of airplanes and people. And in that fleet, you know, you really learn a lot, and it really is a lot about taking care of people, and that's the essence of leadership. Like I said, is making sure that your folks that you're charged for are taken care of. In my time, you know, I spent time as an instructor, teaching kids how to work on F-16s. I also spent time with the Air Force Thunderbirds, doing air shows right down here in Battle Creek for 3 years in a row. Never thought that I would retire 20 miles north of Battle Creek and all those air shows I did, but it was a great opportunity and it was a great place to go and a great place to spread the Air Force message and message about the military. We moved here in 2016. My wife and little guy, Hastings was a dot on the map. We found it, we liked the community, and this is where we decided to come to. Right now I work full-time for GE Aviation. So up there I'm a manager. I work for our aftermarket repairs division, managing a team of 5 folks for our order and fulfillment, and then also I'm a manufacturing leader for our repair aspect as well. So the essence of this committee, you know, in the Veterans Affairs Committee, when I retired, I was looking for something to do and how to give back. And that's one thing as a leader, you always figure out, how do you give back? And it really is about taking care of your people. How do you give back? And so I've been struggling with that. How do I give back? And I seen this opportunity pop up, and I thought, you know, this would be a great opportunity for me to be able to continue to hopefully lead the veterans of Barry County and make sure that that everyone is taken care of.
Thank you. We're going to start with questions from 3 of our veterans that serve on this board. So, Commissioner Smelker, do you have any questions or comments?
On your application, you would prefer night meetings? Did I read that?
Preferably, just because, like I said, I work full-time at GE. Now, I can get the time off. I've coordinated with my boss, you know, that, hey, if we have the meetings during the day, you know, I can work from home. So a little more liberal in that aspect I can do.
That's all I have, except thank you very much for your service.
Well, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Gibson.
Have you had a chance to attend any meetings?
No, I have not. It's one of those that I really started looking into this when, like I said, trying to find something to do, you know, and how to give back. And it's been in the back of my mind for a long time, but I have not attended a meeting.
Thanks for your service.
Thank you, sir.
I have no more questions.
Commissioner Campbell.
Yeah, first, hi, Scott.
Hey, there you go.
I'm over here. First and utmost, thank you for your service. You spent a lot of time there, and that tells a lot about the character of a person.
Thank you, sir.
So appreciate that. None of us know how this will turn out today. You're a very qualified candidate, obviously. But I just want to say that there are many other boards in our county. I became aware of that when I became a new commissioner. There are many other places that, if this doesn't go the way you'd like to today, I'm just saying, there are many other boards that veterans are involved in that affects the veterans. So keep that in mind, and really appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you, and that is something, like I said, it's public service should really be an honor, you know, to be able to serve our public and take care of our constituents and our folks, you know. So I welcome the opportunity, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Commissioner Jackson.
No questions. Thank you for your service and appreciate 27 years and your leadership and past experience I think is useful in county, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Vice Chair Connor.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Appreciate that so very much. Have you ever served on any kind of a board before, a governing board?
Not in this magnitude. You know, I mean, there's a lot of different boards that we would sit on in a military environment, but not in a civil setting, if you will.
Okay. All right. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you again for your application.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Getty.
Thank you for your service as well.
Thank you.
Truly appreciate it. Many years you spent serving our country. I would echo other comments, is that if you're not chosen for this board, I sit on a lot of boards as well, and sometimes there's only those that are on the board that are in attendance at the meetings, and it takes many more than just those sitting at the table to execute the goals and objectives of that board. So I encourage you to, and I'll say this to every applicant, I encourage you to still stay involved.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's in the plans. Like I said, I want to get more involved in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Robert Geyer. Good morning, Mr. Geyer.
Good morning.
We'll give you the floor to introduce yourself, give us a summary of your background, and tell us why you'd like to serve on this committee.
Hi, name's Robert Geyer.
If you could pull the microphone close.
Okay. I was born and raised in Amira County, Wabash County, Wabash, Indiana, which is about the same size as Berry County. My dad was very involved in the community there. My military, I graduated from Purdue University, Industrial Management, and decided that someday I might want to own my own business. And I thought the best way to do that was become an accountant, because they got to see what everybody else did. So I went on to Indiana University to get my master's. I was drafted. I asked the draft board if I could finish the semester, since I already applied and was paid for it, and they said no. So I went down and I enlisted for Officers Candidate School. So I went in, I trained as a combat engineer, and lo and behold, if you're in the top 10 of your graduating class, you get to choose your branch. So I chose to get out of combat, and I was an Adjutant General Corps. So then I got my orders for Vietnam 2 hours after my daughter was born, and went over there. And it's kind of interesting because you're not slotted for a position there. So I went through a number of interviews. And the 1st Signal Brigade, a colonel interviewed me and asked if I could write. And I said yes. And he says, well, I have 3 instances here with facts, and I want you to write. The 3 instances were awards and decorations. By the way, I got the job. It was called Chief of Special Actions, which they put about everything in combat under that. So one of them was awards and decorations, and I was the one that had to put together what award and wrote the citations, and it went to a board, and commanders from all over the country would call me up and say, hey, a guy did this. What award do you think he would be good at or could get through? And so I did that. The next one was congressional inquiries. We averaged about 45 congressional inquiries a month in a brigade. And so they gave me a fact pattern. I had 2 weeks for...
Can you explain what a congressional inquiry is?
Okay, a congressional inquiry is basically an inquiry from a congressman or a senator or the President of the United States. And so we had 2 weeks to respond to a congressman, and it could be anything. I mean, if somebody complained about a meal, say the food's awful, they would do it. I'll give you an example. I had one guy who was in prison. It was the Long Bin Jail, which we refer to as LBJ. And anyway, he was in jail, and he said I was in a 8x8 cell, and the food was awful. So I went to the jail, and it wasn't 8x8, it was 6x8, and the food was awful, and that's how I responded to the congressman. But we had 2 weeks for a congressman, 1 week for a senator, and 3 days for a presidential inquiry to get the facts, and I had a whole department to get the facts.
Did you ever have a presidential inquiry?
Yes, it did. We had, and I'll get into that, but we had a captain who committed suicide, and 2 weeks before, or I'm sorry, about 4 or 5 hours before he committed suicide, he wrote a letter to his mother saying that he was getting his first company command the next day and how excited he was. And then at 4 o'clock in the morning, he committed suicide. And so anyway, we didn't know anything about the first letter, and my next one was I did all casualty reporting, and then it was my responsibility to write the letter for the commanding general of the brigade to the next of kin. And for that, they wanted us to get a full history so we could be empathetic of what their background was and then how they died, and explain that to the next of kin. So in that particular case, I wrote it up, and I had a little disc that I could sign the general's name, the only one in the country, I think. But anyway, I had a great relationship with the commanding general, which is very unusual for a lieutenant. But in that particular case, I wrote the letter, and there was no question he had committed suicide. And it was sent off, and within about a week, all of a sudden, we had a little ticker thing there, and we got four congressmen, 2 senators, and a presidential, all on that one. So as soon as I got those, I called the command headquarters. I said, I need to talk to the general. They said, come on over. Told him what's happened. He said, this is bigger than both of us. And we got the inspector general's office. They sent a full bird colonel to investigate. And it was still the same thing. But I think the hardest thing in the casualty reporting and the letters of next of kin is war to me is personal. And when I came back, it was very hard for me to ever see a war movie because everybody was killed in those war movies were people. And so the interesting thing is in Vietnam, what most people don't realize is I was there in '71. The war was winding down. We had no combat casualties. They were either accidents, drug overdoses, suicides, or murders. And those are the ones that I had to write to. So that gave me, as you can tell, a very personal interest in veterans.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you come back from Vietnam, you're not treated all that well. And but you keep in contact with your buddies and you build them up.
Oh,
So
we have
anyway,
3 Vietnam-era veterans on this board that that were there with you. We'll start with questions. We're going to start with our 3 veterans. We'll start with Commissioner Campbell.
Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
I don't actually have any direct questions. You've answered them very well here. I would just like to say thank you for your service. I have a inkling of what you've dealt with through your life, and appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Commissioner Gibson.
Oh, thanks for your service. I have no questions.
Commissioner Smelker.
Thank you very much for your service, and I have no questions, but also thank you for being a member of the Legion lifetime. Appreciate that.
Commissioner Getty.
I have no questions, but thank you.
Vice Chair Connor.
Thank you for your service. We appreciate your application and your willingness to serve. I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay.
And Commissioner Jackson.
Appreciate your application. Love your background, especially with your CPA background. That can always be useful. Like you said, if there is opportunities in other areas to serve on other boards in the county as well, we would appreciate you looking into that. So thank you.
Thank you for your application. The only thing I have to say is thank you for your service and for being on duty to be there to bring closure and to bring information back, and being you we're never going to forget. So, thank you. All right, the next, we have Martin Kredovic. It's Martin here. Morning, Mr. Kredovic.
Morning.
So I'll give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, share
Okay.
your background, and explain why you would like to serve on this board.
Okay, I'm Marty Kredovic. Was born and raised in Rochester, New York. Graduated from Cornell University. Upon graduation, I was a county agent there for a while, and then I got drafted into the Army, 1968. I was in Vietnam from 69 to 1970. I went over there in the infantry. To my good fortune, they put me in construction engineers at the time, and they asked me if I could type, and I said yes, I could type, which I learned in 7th grade, and I ended up being company clerk at the end of my tour there. So I was very fortunate that I didn't have to go to the infantry. After I got out of service, I moved to Michigan to see another veteran that I was over in the service with, and I decided to stay here. And my degree in Cornell was in agriculture, so I worked on some dairy farms here in Michigan when I got over here. And I stayed here, and eventually I did own and operate my own dairy farm for 10 years. And the last 20 years I worked for Caledonia Farms Elevator, and I retired in 2015. After I retired, I decided to try to look for some volunteer work. And the first thing that I came across was driving for the American Red Cross and eventually Hope Network. And I drove all the veterans around to their different appointments, either the VA or to medical appointments, and I enjoyed that situation where I could be one-on-one with another veteran who has some problems, either medically or mentally, and I thought that was a good thing, and I kind of missed it when it did evaporate here in the county. And so then I was looking for other things to do, volunteer work. I do volunteer at Mackenzie's dog sanctuary once a week. I walk dogs there, and that's helps me to get over and having a pet. And so when this came along, I figured, well, I'm in good health. It's been 50 years since I've been in the service, and it's time to do something else that maybe helps the other veterans either in the area or elsewhere. And so I applied for this position for that reason, to get back into helping veterans
Great.
that are less fortunate than me.
We're going to go into questions, but first I have a quick question for you. Are you related to Gay?
Yes, she's my wife.
Tell her I said hi. Long ago
She
at the
talked about you.
Yeah, on the playgrounds of Woodland Elementary.
Yeah.
Okay, well, for that comment, the first question is to you, sir.
Thank you very much for your service, and I have no questions. Your resume is quite telling. I do want to say that you being company clerk, in our company clerk ran the company. It made sure everything went well. I know there's commanders there, but the clerk is the one that keeps everything in line. Thank you.
They gave me the Army Commendation Medal for service at the end of my tour there.
Thank you. You must have done a good job.
Commissioner Gibson.
Well, thanks for your service. I have no questions.
Commissioner Campbell.
Good morning, Martin. I too want to thank you, first of all, for your service. It sounds like you are in country about the same time I was. And even though you didn't get on the battlefield, I think everybody should be aware that you were very willing to do whatever it took. And I thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Martin, you had mentioned I think your comment was when that opportunity evaporated, when you were driving veterans around?
Yes.
What changed or what happened?
Hope Network decided to discontinue the service in Berry County.
In Berry County, okay. Have you worked with our Veterans Affairs here locally?
No.
Was just curious if you had any experience with them. All right, well, I appreciate your application, thank you.
Vice Chair Connor.
Thank you. Thank you for your service and dedication to your troop and to your country. I want to ask you, have you ever served on a governing board before?
No, just church board.
Oh,
Hey, church boards can get contentious, and sometimes there's politics in church.
yes. So that was my only question. Thank you again for your service and your application to serve. Thank you.
Commissioner Getty.
No questions, but thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Just to follow up to Commissioner Jackson's question, so the Hope Network service, transportation service to veterans was discontinued. Would you say there's still a need for veteran transportation? I see some heads.
Yeah, I think those veterans are still out there, probably more than there was before.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate your application and your service to our nation. Next we have, is Dennis Mapes here? He is here.
I saw him earlier.
He sent a letter saying he might not be here because he was attending a funeral for, or would be attending a funeral for someone that passed away on the USS Oklahoma. So, Mr. Mapes, it's good to see you. Give you a couple minutes to introduce yourself, share your background, and share why you would like to serve on this committee.
Okay, thank you, Ben. My name is Dennis Mapes. I'm a resident of Assyria Township, where I own a family farm. It's been in the family over 150 years, over 100 years, not quite 150 yet. I grew up in Battle Creek, attended Battle Creek schools. My family had a cottage on Thornapple Lake, so I spent all my summers here as well as on the farm in Syria. I enlisted in the Navy in 1967 and served in, mostly on the West Coast, did a Westpac, the Western Pacific. During the Vietnam War, we were search and rescue off the Tonkin Gulf, in the Tonkin Gulf, used most of the time off North Vietnam. In case pilots ejected, we would pick them up. Most of the time in the Navy, it's you stand watch, you're on the ship all the time, and it can be good and it can be boring, but you have an opportunity to visit ports because every now and then you'd have to go in to refuel and replenish. Anyways, I got off active duty. Well, no, then I went to after coming back from Vietnam, I was sent to Washington, D.C. and worked in the Pentagon at the Office of the Chief of Naval Operations for 2 years. I got out of the Navy, and a recruiter kept calling me, and finally I had the urge and took the call and enlisted in the reserves. And I stayed totally active duty and reserve time, it's about 25 years. In the reserves, I was with a NATO unit. We would do exercises mostly in Europe, all in Europe. And I did a lot of exercises in our headquarters, which was in Brussels, Belgium. In fact, I was there so many times that I even had a Japanese girl come up to ask me directions in French. And I told her, no, parlez-vous français? And she said, oh, you speak English? And I said, yeah. So here's a Japanese girl asking me, in French directions. It was really weird. But anyways, I was able to give her directions, and it's one of the lighthearted moments when you're someplace.
You sat on the Berry County Republican Board for many years, and I never knew we had a member that spoke French. Kept that a secret, huh?
Not me. I menu French. I can order food. So I retired from. Then my next active duty stint was in 2006. I went to Kuwait and Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom. I served with Navy Customs Battalion Quebec, and our job there was to make sure anybody rotating out did not have C4, bullets, anything else in their baggage, because there's a problem of things getting on planes that shouldn't get on planes. And so it was interesting work, and that was my win song. I was glad I did it because I knew that I was going to have to retire after that. And so I retired from the Navy. I also had a civilian job. I worked for 43 years at the Kellogg Company and retired from there. I'm currently the commander of the VFW Post 8260 in Nashville. And we have trouble. We're a struggling organization. Younger veterans don't want to join. I don't know, what we can do to get them there, but it's more than we're a community organization. I volunteer here at my church here in Hastings. We do a free breakfast every Saturday, and it's a great thing. It's a great meal, and it's fun doing it, meeting people that you normally wouldn't meet on the street. And also, members from I'm a member of the American Legion, and see a lot of my friends from there at the breakfast. As commander of the VFW, we had an incident where we received a letter from a veteran asking for help. And it was a broad request. I hear that this is available, this is available. There wasn't specific needs, just that if this was available, you wanted it. And I called up and talked to him, and he told me his story, and he was going to be losing the house he lived in and things. And anyways, we had no resources to help him. So I came up to Hastings and went and talked to Lanny Forbes at United Way, and she steered me in different directions. Well, anyways, they were familiar with this person's name, and it turns out it was a scam. Somebody had told them that they could do a letter for him to get all these benefits, and he had to pay them to make the letter. So that's what he did, and he sent the letter out. But it turned out he didn't have any really needs. It's just that they were convinced him that he needed this stuff. And so that was why, there's so many people out there that want to take advantage of veterans.
It's despicable.
And, that was why. It's nice to be able to help. We have people, at our post, we have medical equipment. If anybody needs anything, they can, crutches, bed, or whatever, they can take it out. But, it's just great to be able to help people.
Great. We're going to go into questions. We'll start with Commissioner Smelker.
Have you served on any committees other than the VFW?
I was village president. Well, first of all, I was on the village council a couple times.
Which village?
Village in Nashville. When we lived in the village, I was village president. I was also on the council. I've been on our church board. Like I say, I'm currently the commander of the VFW post, and that's all I can think of right now.
Thank you. I want to thank you for your service, and thank you for keeping the VFW post going.
Well, we're working on it. I think it's improving. I hope so, anyways.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Gibson.
I have no questions. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you for your service also, and not only in the military, but since you've come home in your civilian life and everything, your community, I can tell you're a great contributor to that, so thank you very much for that.
Yep.
Commissioner Getty.
Thank you for really a lifetime of service. It sounds like an impressive assortment of ways that you figured out how to serve your country and your community. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Vice Chair Connor.
Thank you. Hi, Denny.
Hi.
Hi. thank you so much for your service to your country. Thanks for all you've done in your lifetime through your community, for the Legion, for the VFW. Appreciate all of it, and thanks for applying for this post.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Jackson.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Denny. I had no idea you had such a rich background and took you overseas, and appreciate your service.
Well, it was an opportunity, and it was on the government's dime, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to see as much as I did.
All right, thanks, Denny.
Makes you appreciate what we have.
Yes. I regret to inform the committee that Sean Ricketts has fallen ill and is not able to join us today. Mike Timmons. Come on up, Mike.
Sure.
The one, the only, Mike P. Timmons. We'll give you a couple minutes to, I'll do that.
My name is Mike Timmons. I was born in Texas. My wife is from Michigan, so I live in Michigan. I spent 20 years in the Navy. Was in Nam off and on from 1964 to 1974. After about the 125th combat mission and patrol, I stopped counting it. Went to Grand Valley College, got a degree in public administration. While there, I was a reserve deputy sheriff in Oliver County. Had a couple kids, scout leader, Red Cross worker, retired from the Federal Center here in Battle Creek. Lay speaker for the Methodist Church. 16 years as the Assyria Township Supervisor. Generally speaking, I've had a good life, a lot of which was helping people. I think one of my greatest pleasures in life is having a good feeling that I get when I'm able to help somebody. And you can help people all different kinds of ways. And I learned that starting as a deputy sheriff, through the Red Cross, through working at the Salvation Army, and through being a township supervisor. People come up with all kinds of problems that, if you look at them, you can generally help. Being 81 years old now, I don't fill the pulpit in churches much anymore. Slow down a bit, but I find that being on the committee, which I have been since 2015, that I'm able to look at folks and help them where I can. The guy I work for, Patrick, there, he's connected in so many different ways that if a veteran comes in, we can not only help him through the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund, we can help him with other facilities that the county has available. One of the things that we have to be alert to is, as was mentioned, there is some folks who would like to get stuff that they really don't rate. And sometimes it's hard to tell what it is you have before you when you're looking at the paper, and you have to sort of read between the lines. I've enjoyed being able to do that. I think I've done it well. I'd like to continue doing it. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go into questions. We'll start with Commissioner Campbell.
Good morning, Mike. I'm over here behind the pole. First of all, and mostly thank you for your service, not only to the military, but to your community. You've done amazing things and always contributed, and I want to reiterate that your feelings and mine are exactly the same. Nothing makes you feel better and improves your quality of life than helping other people. So appreciate that, Mike.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes, thanks for your service, and have you attended all the meetings?
All of which meetings?
All your veterans meetings?
Through the committee you're talking about?
Yes, the Veterans Affairs Committee.
I've missed, I think, maybe 5 since 2015.
Okay, that's real good. That's all I have.
Commissioner Smelker.
Thank you for your service, Mike. Known you ever since I became a commissioner. I appreciate you being a vet and appreciate what you've done in public afterwards. And I believe one of your best traits is listening, and you do it well. But you also have your own opinions, so and thank you again.
Commissioner Jackson.
No questions, thank you.
Vice Chair Connor.
Well, I had a question. Michael's checking into that about the state appointment.
Yeah, the term, there was seems to be a typo on the committee roster, so that doesn't have to do anything with Mike's application.
But thank you very much for your service. I've known you too since I became a commissioner. Appreciate your dedication to your community and to your fellow veterans. Thank you for your application.
You're welcome.
I don't have any questions.
One of the first municipal meetings I ever attended was down in Assyria Township, and the crowd got a little rowdy, and Supervisor Timmons stepped back and said, "Boy, I heard about enough for you." It wasn't me. I'd still be worried if it was.
That was my next
You
question.
didn't have a beard then, huh?
Yeah. No, you've given a lot to your township and to your country and to this county, and we want to find a way to keep you involved. So thank you for your application.
You're welcome.
If there's no objection, we'll recess for 5 minutes. No objection? We're at recess.